You probably took a good look at the thumbnail and title and wondered what it even means. How could I throw in a soldier from the game Modern Warfare 2 and tag on keywords like identities, social, and casual when comparing it to something like Fortnite with contrasting words like generic, isolated, and sweaty? It's not me necessarily saying a modern game like Fortnite is generic. It was quite innovative, but it rapidly spread the idea of crossovers and all these random additions making other games follow behind and ruin their established identities and instead turn into something generic looking. But what about the social and isolated contrast? Well, this simply means the eventual decline in social elements like game and proximity voice chat, restrictions on behavior in games, and the lack of encouragement to even socialize. Most online games where any match you went into used to be filled with people talking and meeting new friends every single day. But then also the topic of whether games have gotten too competitive, which how could I say that when games exactly like Modern Warfare 2 had some of the sweatiest players known to man? It's not exactly how good people are getting, it's rather lots of people trying to be super efficient at a game instead of kicking back a few times and goofing off, experimenting, and even the content we consume on the internet is a reflection of this. These are all topics I believe are heavily influencing the online landscape within video games. If you've ever questioned why recent online games feel more sporadic in their success nowadays, then I believe these topics will cover exactly that. Our boy Master Chief has been thrown in several places. He's the guy from Fortnite now and came busting into Rainbow Six Siege. But what's the big deal? These are just video games. They aren't supposed to be serious. No one cares that much. When I say these multiplayer games used to take themselves seriously, I mean they had a theme and didn't go too far out of bounds with it. A theme gives a game a direction. You know what it's going to look like, what's our universe and possible lore going to be. Rainbow Six Siege, when I first played it, looked completely different than what it is now. Color choices, the characters and lore that have been brought in, the blending of all this random stuff that doesn't fit the game's original style. It's okay in moderation, but it gets to be too much at a certain point. It certainly can be nice having something you like cross over into this other world you also like, but most of the time it'll be forced and only an attempt to get your money. I covered this topic with Call of Duty and decided it was much bigger than just that franchise. It brought in many crazy skins and completely new characters, leaving big stains on showcasing a game about modern warfare. I labeled the title When Call of Duty Took Itself Seriously. And I've had that topic sometimes misunderstood. The serious part is not it being realistic or always looking authentic. There will always have to be sacrifices to the look of a game to appeal to gameplay. Serious here means it knows what the franchise is. Sometimes it'll try getting creative, but it doesn't ever let all these crazy elements seep into everything. A very completely healthy mix was back during Black Ops 2, where most of these elements took over was purchasable camos and emblems that could be made into anything by all players. That was it. Let me make a comparison example. In today's world, there are still online games that respect having a theme and trying to stick to it. Let's take a recently popular game like Helldivers. You run around in these cool ass environments playing as soldiers who are fighting for democracy. Also crowning these slick capes in a world with all these big spaceships. The whole community is on the immersive fun of this game. They love blindly rooting for democracy, creating cinematic moments, and going guns blazing. Now how about I just take your little immersive fun and throw some characters in there like Deadpool, Wonder Woman, Joel from The Last of Us, and some celebrities as well like Margot Robbie and The Weeknd. Then start throwing in random skins for guns that try to suck all the dopamine out of you by doing all these cool tricks. You may look at some of that and think that'd be funny, or that'd be cool to play as something like Deadpool, but is it really the place for it? I thought Helldivers was cool for the characters in the universe. There's no limits with some of these things. They could take ships and make them into something completely different. Maybe introduce a new faction that doesn't make any sense to the world. And maybe add all these customizable cosmetics that doesn't fit the nature of the game in any capacity. If all this happened, how would your perception of the game change? How would it hold up against other online games from maybe a decade or two ago? In ways, the overload of adding all these random microtransactions is a bailout for money making on the business side. Rather than getting really creative with the content they add that brings more life to a game, they'd rather play it extremely safe. Do what every other big company is doing with their live service game. I get it if you don't care about the random visuals and appearance, but you wonder why single player games have been on fire while online games have been much more sporadic and pumping out more failures than successes. It's because lots of these follow a very similar path. Even the ones who have decent launches eventually start going downhill pretty fast. It's why some people have been sticking to their classics and the really well made ones that have been going for plenty of years. I'd say some people have become perfectly fine with remasters of games rather than new ones, because they trust that so much better than anything else that can come out. And even then, you could see those same remasters get plagued by some of these modern elements. But enough with themes and the overall look of a game. It's very important, but it's not everything. Multiplayer games have gotten more lackluster because they are missing a lot of the magic that multiplayer games over a decade ago were providing.
Dude, seriously, stop. You're annoying. As we go by. Dude, shut up.
It's not me, it's the world on my right.
Quit.
Can you tell me how many people you have met in game and actually talked to in the past month? What's the average? And if you've been gaming a long time before that, can you tell me what the average was back then? I've been around on plenty of the popular games for almost 20 years now. And the biggest thing that I always notice is that I rarely stumble into a game where people have mics on. An active group of people who will join into a conversation at possibly any point. Inside the game was where I used to meet everyone that would be tallied onto my friends list. Almost every 2 weeks, I would definitely have at least one new person I added to the friends list, mostly because of some fun we had in a match. And I was never a big talker either. I flash forward to today, and most of the people I have met have been outside of the game, through external sources where the capabilities of making friendship through a fun or intense match is much lessened. And you know, as a gamer, you might look over a lot of this because we can be some of the most introverted and shy people. But once you break the ice with someone and said, F it, we're going to make this match that we are in right now a fun one, it's one of the best times you'll look forward to any moment you hop into the games. You take away these opportunities of meeting people or even just chit-chatting with a few people for even just one match, and eventually, no matter what, the game will start to get really stale because the gameplay can only carry the game for so long in an online environment. Now, it's not completely dead. Not everyone is friendless, but you can't deny that there's factors holding this all back. I'm not going to dig deep into specifics as I've already talked about this topic beforehand, but you could blame things like voice chat restrictions, not everyone having a microphone, apps like Discord, and so on. But I want to touch on the problem that I always see brought up, where lots will say the games have gotten too sweaty. On the surface of this topic, you may think it's just people trying way too hard. And yes, I do believe with a bigger population in games and the way the internet is nowadays, it's really easy for people to get better. Everyone is a click away from learning what's best and how to maximize everything. Hearing only about that stuff, it doesn't bother me too much because I've always had games that were absolute sweatfest, but instead it's how the gaming ecosystem has changed for the worse because of everyone trying to be good. If I'm flashing back to one of my favorite multiplayer games of all time, once again Black Ops 2, I enjoyed it thoroughly for a multitude of reasons discussed before in this video, but also because of how the average gamer was back then. Not everything was about getting the most kills and seeing who pops off the most. We weren't in that mindset all the time. Other times we thought about experimenting, maybe popping on the riot shield and trying to troll some randoms. Maybe we told the lobby, let's make this a quick scoping match and see how many people would try joining in on it. Maybe take this business over to a custom game so we can play some Window Wars. The product of not being super sweaty all the time and maximizing everything led to variety and people creating their own fun with what was given to them. The internet was a perfect reflection of this. My favorite group of creators were focused on making content for fun, messing around in the game, getting reactions from others, and that would then influence others to get out and try the things they did. In a game like Call of Duty, many of the most iconic things to do, such as something as grand as trick shotting, was a result of the internet.
There's somebody down there.
It was something that the developers of the game didn't implement and was an unnatural result of experimenting with the mechanics of a game. To break it down simply, the way we look at an online environment has changed in ways that games such as Black Ops 2 couldn't be replicated in today's world because of the way things have changed. I played online games for much more than just the satisfying gameplay and the innovating graphics we so desire. It was always the environment that was created from things such as goofing off, watching it on YouTube, and then trying that in-game. But you didn't do that all alone. The whole community was reactive, and you went into those matches trying things to only meet some of the coolest people who may or may not have stuck around for a while in your gaming life. But either way, it was fun, and what made me want to keep playing a game for much longer than I do nowadays. Fortunately for the industry, smaller budget games understand this better, and we get to see that to some degree.